The walls were not simply wood planks nailed together. They were thick barriers made from timber frames packed with turf and earth, sometimes reaching 3 feet in depth, creating a blanket of grass and soil that provided natural insulation. When snow piled on top during winter, it added another protective layer. The building breathed with the seasons, expanding and contracting, but always maintaining its core purpose of keeping the deadly cold at bay. Modern people would consider this design primitive or even dangerous, but the Vikings knew exactly what they were doing. The smoke served multiple purposes. As it drifted through the rafters, it preserved the fish, meat, and sausages hanging there. It kept insects and pests away. It treated the wooden beams, protecting them from rot. The smoke was not an unfortunate side effect of having no chimney. It was part of the survival system.
Of course, living with constant smoke had its price. Everyone in the longhouse had irritated eyes that watered and stung. Chronic coughs were common, especially among children and the elderly. Visitors could smell a household's particular smoke signature from yards away.
The smoke is getting worse.
But these were accepted consequences. The alternative was freezing to death, and that was not acceptable.
We must gather enough for the whole winter.
Aye, the cold won't wait for us.
A single longhouse might need 6 to 8 cords of wood to make it through winter. That represented thousands of pounds of timber that had to be cut. Wet wood produces more smoke and less heat. Keeping it dry is crucial, so it's split, hauled, and stacked under cover. In places like Iceland, where trees were scarce or non-existent, Vikings had to be even more resourceful. They cut peat from the bogs during summer, slicing thick blocks from the earth like dark, heavy bread. These peat blocks were stacked in crisscross patterns to allow air to flow through them, drying them over weeks and months. Dried peat burned slower than wood and produced a different quality of heat, but it was fuel, and fuel meant life.
Look, more driftwood. It's a gift from the sea.
With no wood left, this dung fire will keep us warm.
In the far north, whale blubber and seal fat were rendered down and burned in stone lamps, providing both light and heat. The fire in the central hearth was never allowed to die completely. This was not just practical advice, but a fundamental rule of survival. Gotta keep this fire going. Adjust the logs for an even burn. And the flames were coaxed back to life. If the fire went out completely, restarting it was difficult and time-consuming. In the worst cases, someone had to walk to a neighbor's house to borrow fire, carrying it back in a container as if it were liquid gold. Cows, sheep, goats, and horses lived through winter alongside their human caretakers.
Easy now, plenty for everyone.
This arrangement would seem bizarre and unsanitary to modern sensibilities, but it was brilliant survival strategy. Each large animal was essentially a living furnace, radiating body heat constantly. A cow's body temperature stays around 101 degrees, and that warmth spread through the shared space. The methane gas produced by their digestive systems actually contributed to warming the air, though nobody in Viking times understood the chemistry involved. They simply knew that having animals inside made everything warmer. But Vikings adapted to it the same way they adapted to the smoke. Their noses grew accustomed to the odors that would make a modern person gag. The animals had to be fed and their waste had to be managed, which created additional work, but the heat they provided was worth every moment of effort. Clothing was another critical survival technology.
First, a soft wool undertunic against the skin, then a heavier wool overtunic for warmth, and finally wool trousers to complete the outfit.
On top of that went a thick wool cloak, often lined with fur. Wool socks and leather boots for extra the feet.
Mittens, hats when someone had to go outside.
The wealthy added furs from bears, wolves, foxes, or seals.
These furs were status symbols, but they were also functional, providing an extra barrier against the wind.
Creating all this clothing was a year-round occupation for the women of the household. Sheep were sheared in summer.
The wool had to be cleaned and combed. Then it was spun into thread, finally woven on large upright looms into fabric. The fabric was then fulled by pounding it in water to make it thicker and more weather-resistant. Finally, it was cut and sewn into garments. A single cloak could represent hundreds of hours of work. Children inherited clothing from older siblings so many times that it literally fell apart. Even then, the scraps were saved and used as stuffing or insulation.
Privacy did not exist in winter. It could not exist. Separation meant cold, and cold meant death.
Are you okay? I don't feel well.
What's wrong?
I'm so cold. Your skin is freezing. We need to warm you, now. Everyone, surround them. We've got you. Here, take this. The heat from the food will help. Thank you. I can feel it working.
Vikings consumed enormous quantities of calories during winter, especially fat. A typical man needed 4,000 to 5,000 calories per day. Fatty fish like herring and salmon were staples. Seal blubber was eaten in chunks or rendered into oil. Butter was spread thickly on bread. Meat was always prepared with its fat intact. Soups and stews were made rich with bone marrow and grease. Modern nutritionists would be horrified by the amount of animal fat in the Viking winter diet, but the Vikings understood instinctively what science now confirmed. Fat provides 9 calories per gram, more than twice what carbohydrates or protein provide. All this food had to be preserved during the warm months because nothing could be grown or hunted easily in the depths of winter. Fish were salted, smoked, or dried above the wood. Meat was treated the same way, hanging in the smoke-filled rafters until it was preserved. Vegetables were pickled in brine or fermented. Grains were stored in sealed containers to keep them dry. Apples and other fruits were dried. Milk was turned into cheese and butter that could last for months. Nothing was wasted. Fish bones were boiled to extract every bit of marrow and nutrients. Organ meats were considered delicacies because they were packed with vitamins. Even blood was saved and made into sausages or puddings. Despite all this preparation, late winter was often called the starving time.
We must give the boy more. He is the strongest.
But what about the girl? She'll starve.
We have no choice. Should precious food go to an elderly grandparent who might not survive anyway, or to a young father who could hunt and work? Should a sick child receive a full portion, or should that food be saved for healthy siblings? These were not hypothetical moral questions.
They were real choices that determined who lived and who died.
The psychological challenge of winter was just as severe as the physical one.
In the far north, the sun barely rose above the horizon for months. Even in southern Scandinavia, daylight was limited to a few hours.
This mess is driving me crazy.
It's not my stuff! Please, not again.
I'm sick of this.
I can't sit still, it's so boring. Leave me alone.
Stop leaving your mess everywhere.
What a mess!
This is where storytelling became a survival tool just as important as fire or food. Elders told stories of gods and heroes, of battles and voyages. Of these stories entertained, but they also educated.
They passed down history, values, and practical knowledge. They reminded everyone that they were part of something larger than themselves.
We are connected to a long line of survivors who endured these hardships.
We'll learn these stories and tell them to the next generation.
Women wove and sewed while listening, their hands busy even as their minds traveled to distant lands and mythical realms. Communities depended on each other in ways that modern people struggle to understand. No single family could survive winter alone.
Your fire's out. Need help?
Yes, please! The cold is terrible. Thank you both. We were struggling.
They had to be taken in immediately or they would die. Orphans and widows were absorbed into other households not out of charity but out of necessity.
Everyone contributed what they could, and everyone received help when they needed it.
I keep what's mine, then be shunned. In the Viking world, being shunned was a death sentence. Social bonds were survival infrastructure.
Still, not everyone made it. Even once in one main college.
The elderly weakened and died. People with existing health problems succumbed to infections that their compromised immune systems could not fight.
The air is thick. I cannot breathe.
My head aches so. The sparks! The lamp is too close!
Occasionally, a longhouse roof would collapse under the weight of heavy snow, trapping and killing everyone inside.
We have to find help. We can't last. I know, but the cold is so bad.
Mom, I'm freezing.
The first green shoots pushing through the earth were cause for joy. People emerged from their longhouses like prisoners released sunlight.
The air smelled clean for the first time in months. The world seemed to expand after the claustrophobic confinement of winter.
Great gods, we survived the trials.
We thank you, great God.
Bless the coming season with abundance.
Bless the harvest.
Modern humans live in a fundamentally different relationship with winter. A thermostat is adjusted with the flick of a finger. Heat pours from vents without thought or effort. The idea of spending months in a smoke-filled room,
Sharing space with livestock, eating preserved food and rationed calories, seems like something from a nightmare.
yet Vikings did this every single year for more than 3 centuries. They did not just endure it. Their success was not due to a single clever invention. It was a complete system where every element supported every other element. The community cooperation, all these pieces fit together into a survival machine. Remove any one element and the whole system would fail.
We need more wood. Winter is coming.
I'll help. We must work together.
Respect the winter. It tests us.
The Viking Age eventually ended, but their knowledge did not disappear. Scandinavian design principles still emphasize good insulation.
This stone's thermal mass holds the heat from the fire.
And it keeps the warmth in for the whole village.
The memory of those harsh centuries lives on in stories, in traditions, and in the DNA of descendants who carry genes selected for cold tolerance. The longhouse with no chimney was not a sign of primitive ignorance. It was sophisticated technology perfectly adapted to its environment.
Use the striker. Birch bark first. Got it. Here.
Sparks, it's catching!
Yes! Fan it gently.